On June 23, 1757, 3,000 men walked into a mango grove near a village called Place. They were outnumbered 17 to 1. The enemy had 50,000 soldiers, artillery commanded by French officers, and war elephants. Robert Clive, the British commander, had spent the night before in meditation, crisis written across his face. His officers had voted against engagement. One wrong move, and they would be slaughtered to the last man. But 3 hours later, the battle was over, and with it, the fate of 200 million people was sealed. Not because of courage, not because of tactics, because of a bribe, because weeks before, Clive had promised the enemy's second-in-command that he would make him king, and Mir Jafar, seeing opportunity, ordered his 17,000 soldiers to stand down, to watch, to do nothing as his own ruler fled in terror. Suddenly, 2/3 of the Nawab's army was neutralized. Siraj fled. His remaining forces broke. By afternoon, it was over. This is what happens when you let a corporation wage war. We are taught in school that the British Empire ruled India. We see images of the crown, of parliament, of viceroys in plumed hats. We are told this was colonialism practiced by a nation-state. But this is the sanitized version. For over a century before the British Raj, India was not ruled by Britain. It was ruled by a company, a corporation, the British East India Company. And the empire it built was not a project of government. It was a project of profit. This is the story of how a business became a superpower, how shareholders decided the fate of millions, how a corporate charter became a license to conquer, and how the largest economy in the world, producing a quarter of global GDP, fell not to the British Army, but to a balance sheet and 260,000 private soldiers. Look at a map of the world in 1600. Spain controls the seas, but is bankrupting itself. Portugal's grip on the spice trade is slipping. The Dutch dominate Indonesia. England, a second-rate power, small, late to the game. But in December 1600, Queen Elizabeth signs a royal charter. She grants a monopoly to a group of London merchants, 215 of them, who pool nearly £70,000. They call themselves the Governor and Company of Merchants of London Trading into the East Indies. History knows them as the East India Company. Read that charter carefully. It grants exclusive trading rights east of the Cape of Good Hope. Everything. India, China, the Spice Islands. But here is the crucial part. The charter grants the right to make war and peace with any non-Christian power, the right to acquire territory, to coin money, to administer justice. These are the powers of a sovereign state, given to a business. This was venture capital dressed in legal authority. Shareholders expected returns. Directors answered to profit, not Parliament. And their target was India. Because in 1600, India was the richest place on earth. Its textile industry alone generated more revenue than all of England. Its cotton fabrics were finer than anything Europe could produce. The Mughal Empire was at its peak. Cities like Delhi and Agra dwarfed anything in Europe. The company wanted in. At first, it seemed fair trade. The company's ships arrived in Surat in 1608. They negotiated. They paid customs. They set up factories, trading posts. Surat in 1613, Madras in 1639, Bombay in 1668, Calcutta in 1690. These were warehouses, fortified warehouses with walls and cannons, but the company insisted this was just security, protection against pirates and rivals. But from the beginning, the company did not just hire guards. It raised armies, Indian soldiers, sepoys, trained and armed under British officers. By 1750, the company had 3 distinct armies, one for each presidency: Bengal, Madras, Bombay. These were not security forces. They were military units capable of waging war. In 1686, the company even declared war on the Mughal Empire itself. It lost. Badly. It sued for peace, paid reparations, and promised never again. But notice what happened. A private corporation declared war on the most powerful empire in Asia, and when it lost, it was not dissolved. It apologized, paid a fine, and returned to business. Because by then, the company had become too valuable, the profits too large. Members of parliament were shareholders. Government ministers invested fortunes in company stock. When the company thrived, powerful men got richer, and powerful men do not shut down revenue streams. So the company learned. Less direct confrontation, more bribery, more alliances with local rulers, more loans to princes who needed money for their own wars. And when those rulers could not repay, the company took territory as collateral, piece by piece, port by port, province by province. This was conquest by debt, by contract law, by financial extraction, and it was legal. Every step had papers, agreements, treaties signed by legitimate rulers, even if obtained through duress or bribes. This was not an accident. This was the design. Control the economy, use money, credit, debt, and maintain an army to enforce collection. The turning point came in the 1750s. The Mughal Empire had fractured. Emperor Aurangzeb died in 1707, and central authority collapsed. India broke into competing powers. Into this chaos stepped two rival corporations, the British and French East India Companies. They picked sides in local conflicts. They funded wars. They lent money and demanded territory. Because of market share, Bengal was the prize, the richest province. 30 million people. It produced silk, cotton, opium, saltpeter, more tax revenue than all 13 American colonies combined. Whoever controlled Bengal controlled wealth. The Nawab of Bengal in 1756 was Siraj-ud-Dowlah. 23. Impulsive, inexperienced, terrified of Europeans fortifying positions along his coast. He demanded they stop. He ordered the British to tear down fortifications at Fort William in Calcutta. The governor refused. Siraj attacked. The British garrison fled. Those who stayed were captured and imprisoned overnight in a small cell. By morning, 123 of 146 prisoners were dead, suffocated. The black hole of Calcutta. This gave the company its justification. The company sent Robert Clive, a former clerk turned military commander. He understood that Indian wars were won not by superior numbers, but by intelligence, money, and willingness to make deals others called treasonous. Clive identified Mir Jafar, Siraj's uncle and commander of a significant army portion. Mir Jafar was ambitious, resentful. He wanted the throne. Clive offered it. In exchange, Mir Jafar would betray his nephew, hold his troops back during battle, let the British win. Once Siraj was dead and Mir Jafar installed as Nawab, the company would gain trading privileges, territory, and money. The deal was sealed June 10, 1757. The Battle of Plassey was decided before the first shot. On June 23, the armies faced each other. Siraj commanded 50,000. Clive had 3,000. The Nawab's army advanced. Then Mir Jafar's 17,000 troops stood still. They watched. They did nothing. Suddenly, 2/3 of the Nawab's army was neutralized. Siraj fled. His remaining forces broke. By afternoon, it was over. Clive's casualties? 22 men. Siraj was captured and executed. Mir Jafar became Nawab. Robert Clive became ruler of Bengal in everything but name. But here is the critical detail. Clive did not conquer Bengal for Britain. The British government did not order this. The British Army did not fight this battle. Parliament did not debate it. This was a private military action, funded by shareholders, executed by a corporate employee, resulting in a corporate takeover of a territory larger than France with 30 million people. The profits began immediately. Jafar rewarded Clive personally with £234,000. He gave millions to company officers. He granted the company zamindari rights, huge tracts of tax-generating land. And most importantly, he agreed the company would trade duty-free. Clive returned to England a legend, made Baron Clive of Plassey. When questioned about corruption, he said, "I stand astonished at my own moderation." He could have taken more. In 1765, the final piece fell. Clive negotiated with Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II. The emperor granted the company the Diwani of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa, the right to collect taxes. A private corporation now had legal authority to tax 30 million people. The annual tax revenue was approximately £4 million sterling. The company used this to buy Indian goods for European markets and to expand its army. By 1800, 200,000 soldiers. By the 1820s, 260,000. Twice the size of Britain's standing army. A private company controlled an army larger than Britain's. It ruled territory larger than Western Europe. It had its own courts, coinage, legal system. It negotiated treaties as a sovereign nation, and it answered only to shareholders. This was not colonialism as we know it. This was corporate feudalism. The company appointed judges, enforced laws. If you lived in Bengal, the company was your government, not the crown, not parliament, a business, a corporation listed on the London Stock Exchange. The system was designed for one purpose: extraction, maximize revenue, minimize costs. And if people suffered? Shareholders do not care about famines. They care about dividends. The company ran Bengal like a plantation, increased taxes, forced farmers to grow cash crops, indigo, opium, instead of food, eliminated traditional protections during bad harvests, just extraction, constant mechanical extraction. In 1770, the rains failed. The Bengal famine. 3 years. Crops withered. Rice prices skyrocketed. People ate grass, then bark. Bodies piled in streets. 10 million died. 1/3 of Bengal's population. The company maintained tax collection. In some districts, increased taxes to compensate for lost revenue. Company officials wrote London explaining that while unfortunate, the treasury remained stable. Profit margins protected. Shareholders received dividends. This was not incompetence. This was policy. The company's responsibility was not to the people it governed. It was to investors who owned its stock. 10 million corpses said otherwise. After Bengal came Bihar, then Orissa, then the Carnatic, then Mysore after wars, then Maratha territories, then Punjab. Each conquest followed the same pattern. Identify a weak or indebted ruler. Offer protection for trade concessions. If refused, fund enemies. If that failed, send the army. After conquest, impose taxes. Extract resources. Send profits to London. Always maintain the fiction. This was not British conquest. This was company, business. Treaties signed, contracts honored, everything legitimate, everything legal. It just looked exactly like empire building. By the early 19th century, the East India Company was the largest corporation in the world. It controlled trade routes from England to India to China, monopolized tea trade, produced 90% of the world's opium. Its territories covered over 1 million square miles, 200 million subjects, And it had discovered an even more profitable business: drugs. The company grew opium in Bengal, fields of poppies, harvested, processed, packaged for export. Destination? China. Because China's economy was too strong, too self-sufficient. It sold tea and silk to Europe, but bought almost nothing. European merchants paid in silver. The company found a solution: get China addicted to opium. It was brilliant. Evilly brilliant. The company sold opium illegally to Chinese merchants. China banned it. The company smuggled anyway. Millions became addicts. Silver stopped flowing to Chinese treasuries and started flowing to company coffers. When the Chinese government tried to stop the trade, seized and destroyed opium shipments, the company brought in the British military. The Opium Wars. 1839. Then 1856. Wars fought for the right to sell drugs. Britain won both. The company kept selling opium. China opened its ports, legalized the drug trade, paid reparations for destroying company property. A private corporation got a national military to wage 2 wars on its behalf, to enforce its right to sell narcotics. By the 1850s, opium revenues funded a quarter of the British colonial budget in India. Over 50,000 chests exported annually. Each chest 70 kilograms. Millions of addicts. Billions in revenue. This was the company at peak power. Not just powerful, untouchable.